This happened 3 years ago. At the time, I was 21, and I'm a female. I went on vacation with my family. We stayed at a hotel resort right next to the beach. Every night, my family would meet up for a drink or an evening stroll on the Pomerade. The Pomerade itself was always filled with a lot of people, especially couples, enjoying a beautiful evening walk. On the third day, I couldn't sleep. My brother was still awake, but we had a fight earlier, so I didn't ask him to come on my walk. Now, before you think I was being stupid, it was midnight, I think, and still the Pomerade was filled with people. So I put on some loose pants and a shirt, nothing fancy, and went on a walk. Normally, I'm quite aware of my surroundings, especially at night, but since there are still so many people around, I put my earphones in and listened to some relaxing music. The walk started off great. I was watching the beautiful nightlife on the Pomerade and the other resorts. After 30 minutes, I went to sit on the beach to tie my shoelaces. In the corner of my eye, I noticed a man who stopped as well, sitting on a bench 2 benches from mine. I didn't find anything suspicious yet. I start to walk again and notice the man getting up as well and walking about 20 meters behind me. I slowed down my pace to put my headphones in my pocket. I was getting suspicious, but wanted to know for sure. Again, I stopped and pretended to search for something on my phone. He stopped as well. So I had to pass the creepy man to get back to my hotel. Since I was still surrounded by people, I felt somewhat safe. In my head, I had the genius plan to go down to the beach and hide behind one of the beach chairs. The beach was pitch black, and in my mind, this was the best solution. I start to speed up. The creepy man didn't match my pace yet. Then a big group of people passed by. Right then, I made a run for the beach and hid. 30 seconds later, I saw the man looking for me from the promenade in my direction. He was searching for me. I was hoping that he would give up, but he started making his way towards the beach chairs. That moment, I didn't think and started running on the beach. Once I was far enough, I went back on the promenade and sprinted. Completely soaked in sweat, I stopped in front of the hotel and looked back. I had lost the creepy man. I rushed back to my room. That was the only and last time I went walking alone. I know I should have asked for help from the people around me, and just because you're surrounded by people, don't think you're safe. To the man who stalked and chased me, let's not meet again. This really creepy thing happened to me yesterday. I'm still processing it because, what the fuck? Bit of context, I live in Ireland, pretty peaceful country. Recently moved from Galway to Dublin. Moved to North Dublin, which is a rougher part, but it's still not that bad. I live with my family outside the city, could be considered the countryside. This area is pretty rural. It's just houses and farms, pretty much, with no shops or stations nearby. Mind you, there are a lot of houses around, but we all have distance as we have big gardens. There are no sidewalks, and this road is pretty narrow and worn out. It's rare to see cars, so it's fine to just go on the road. I was going on my daily 2K run. Usually go around 6 p.m., but yesterday I had some studying to do and went out around 9 p.m. It was pretty dark. Let me describe the experience. Imagine on the left, there will be the house that you lived in, lights on. Then on your right, you'll see a farm. Then you'll see an abandoned building right beside, and then an area of trees for 200 meters or so. This was pretty much the whole road. Not abandoned, but creepy enough to scare me at night. Anyways, I usually listen to music on my runs with the volume all the way up, so I can't hear anything. So I reach the area with a patch of trees. It's basically pitch black. The lights don't work properly. Occasionally they turn on, then flicker back off. So I need to use a flashlight to navigate. A song from West Side Story is blasting in my headphones, and I'm vibing. And then the lights flicker back on, so that's great. But that's when it hits me. there's a figure standing about 30 meters away, like 20 meters from the road, in the trees. First I thought I was seeing stuff, but no, he was standing still, not moving at all. I'm creeped, so I keep running. I turn down the volume of my music just in case I hear the figure move, so I can make a run for it. I speed up and pass the figure, and I still don't turn up my music. After I'm about 100 meters away, I turn my music up and try to process what happened. Maybe I'm seeing things because it was pretty dark. At this point, I'm long gone. However, I still need to come back home and usually walk back the distance I ran. Basically, I run 2K and walk 2K back. Again, I come to that spot. This time, the light is flickering, but they're mostly staying on. I try to observe the spot where the figure was standing, but I see nothing. At this point, I'm creeped out. I turn off my music and start to run past the spot because I'm scared. And suddenly, a man jumps across the street right in front of me. It looks like the same figure. I came to a halt for a second. I'm shocked, and then he starts moving, so I turn around and start running as fast as I can. While I'm doing this, he starts screaming for help. I eventually run past the tree area and went to the area with houses. Someone heard the screaming and came out to ask me if everything was okay, so I stopped running and realized the guy was gone. I explained everything to the man, and at this point, I'm extremely creeped out and scared. I still need to go back home, but my parents aren't home. They went over to a friend's house, so I'm left home alone. I asked the stranger for a lift because I'm not going to go back through there ever again. Thankfully, the stranger isn't an old creep and he escorts me home. I lock all the doors and check everything to make sure I'm safe. Shortly after, my parents arrived, but I didn't tell them anything because I didn't want to worry them. I haven't gone out for a run today because I'm generally scared. I'm terrified thinking about what would have happened if I was too tired to run and he caught me. I'll update you guys if anything happens. I don't think anything else will happen though, hopefully. I like to walk early in the morning, after the sun comes up, and the route I take is mostly through residential areas. But there is a section that leads you down the waterfront. It's fairly isolated, especially at that time of the day, and it's lined with tall grass and trees. I will pass the odd runner or someone biking, but that's about it. I don't do this walk as often now, as I walk to and from work, but still enjoy it on the weekends when I have a chance. Last Saturday, I had a chance, so I headed out for my walk. As I approached the section that leads down to the water, I saw a man across the road go onto the trail. A few minutes later, I approached it and expected to see him walking down to the water, as you can see a fair distance, but he was nowhere to be seen. It struck me as odd, and my instincts told me to take an alternate route along the road that meets up further down the waterfront. I was leery, so I kept looking back, and after a minute or so, I saw him come out of the tall grass and go back across the road into a park area between the houses. I shrugged it off and figured maybe he went to go take a leak. Sunday morning was beautiful, and I decided to go for another walk, and the same damn thing, but this time I happened to catch a glimpse of him going onto the trail. I was seriously creeped out and even crossed the road to go past that section and continued along the road, and this time I didn't see him come back out. Well, at least not before I went out of sight down to the waterfront. I've been doing the same walk at about the same time for a couple years, almost every day except recently, and it has crossed my mind that maybe this guy has been watching me. Am I being too overly paranoid? Now I'm hesitant about that route, which sucks, as that part of the walk is actually my favorite bit. I often see deer and a lot of birds. I always have my phone easily accessible, and I have a pouch on my waist with a pocket knife, and I carry 3-pound weights in my hands. Pretty sure I could do damage with them if I wanted to. What other ways could I be more prepared for a creepy encounter? Or should I just avoid the route now? Or do you think I'm just overreacting? I'm a female, 23. Well, this just happened to me this morning. I don't know if it's a big deal, but here we go. I walk to the bus stop every morning to go to work around 6 a.m., and today was a particularly dark morning. It was freezing and had been raining. My street is the last one in the neighborhood. Behind my street is just woods, no house or street. And for 7 months when I've been walking, there's no one in my street that goes to work at the same time as me. Only one guy in the next street that sometimes leaves in a hurry. So today I was walking, just had crossed my street, and all of a sudden I hear a noise that's not too far from me. When I turn back, there's this older guy trying to walk silently behind me. Doesn't look like he's going to work. There's no backpack with him, and not even an umbrella. Apparently he had got out of my own street, like he was waiting for me to get out of my house. He was walking slow, but when I started walking faster, I looked behind me, and he started walking faster too. I kind of ran a little, terrified with my little taser that I always carry in my backpack, until I got to the bus stop, where some guys always wait for the bus with me. I waited to see if the creep would show up in front of the bus stop. If he was going somewhere, he'd pass the bus stop, as there's no other ways to go out. But he never did. I guess he just gave up when I ran. The worst part is, there's an old creep in my neighborhood that was in jail for a long time for being a serial rapist in the 90s. He served his sentence and today is a free man. But like last month, he was asking my mom to take care of our garden, and he kept creeping around the house when my dad's out for work. I don't know if that was him today, but it was dark, and he's the first one I can think of. This happened about 14 years ago when I was 18 years old. I was friends with a lot of kids, of shady people as a teen, when I lived in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. One of the fastest ways to get from one part of the town to the other was walking on the railroad tracks. To set part of the scene, there was an old abandoned building along the tracks. I was wearing a hoodie and walking along the tracks when I heard someone from the entrance of the building say, "I think that's him." I started running and heard someone behind me running on my heels. They caught up to me and grabbed my hood and spun me around. I was face to face with one of my friend's dads. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, bud. I thought you were someone else. You almost got stabbed." I was like, "Well, thanks for not stabbing me, man." He goes, "Come over later for supper. I'll feed you and give you a few beers to make up for this. And if you see Johnny, let him know I'm looking for him. Sometimes it's good to know the wrong people." When I was 17, I was going through Virginia with my mom on our way to North Carolina. We were staying in a hotel in Alexandria, and a lot of the places were walking distance from the place. So one day, we got ready to get breakfast over at a Panera Bread a few blocks away. It's around maybe 11 a.m., decently populated area. It's summer. I'm in the typical summer clothes, nothing too extreme, a tank top and jean shorts. This guy walks towards us on the sidewalk, and he starts walking directly towards us. And as he comes closer, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He comes up to my mom, and I'm 5 or so feet away, because I didn't realize he started saying something, and then I hear, "How much for the little one?" Because he thinks I'm a prostitute, my mom's my pimp. My mom was like, "That's my daughter. She's not for sale." "Oh well, you have a beautiful daughter. Can I bum some cigarettes?" When we were leaving Alexandria the day or two later, we are pretty sure we saw the same dude passed out on a park bench. So horny homeless guy who thought I was a hooker. Let's not meet again. It was 2018, back when I lived in the suburbs of Paris. I had been playing Pokemon Go since its release, and I used to go out and play at night, always with my best friends on voice calls. It was a night like any other, following my usual route. It was about 2 a.m. and I had already covered about a good 2 kilometers. I found myself about 1 kilometer away from home, standing near a Pokestop, catching what I could while talking to my friend, just like every night. It was a residential street with a few streetlights, but quite dark as there was a field just behind it. After about 5 minutes, I noticed a man in his 30s on the opposite sidewalk, just a few meters away from me, holding head shears in his hands, and there was a pile of branches at his feet. I thought this man was just trimming a bunch of branches of his tree. However, when I described the scene to my friend, he said, "You should leave right away. No one does gardening in the middle of the night." Despite my friend's warning, I was so focused on Pokemon Go that I wanted to capture all the Pokemon before leaving, so I stayed while keeping an eye on the man's actions. As I looked at the man, I realized he wasn't cutting any branches. He was only staring at me. He would occasionally move and hide behind a parked van nearby while spying on me through the windows. He knew very well I could see him, and I began to feel scared. Despite my friends pleading for me to leave, I still hadn't caught all the Pokemon, so I hesitated to go. The man continued his strange behavior, crossing over to my side of the street and hiding behind some bushes while staring at me. Then he went back to his pile of branches and stared at me again. Finally, I had enough. I decided to leave. I walked normally towards my home, trying not to show any fear. I had a straight path back home. My friend on the call asked me to check behind me just in case the man followed me. Indeed, he was, still holding the head shears, about 10 meters behind me. I then made a left turn instead of going straight, even though that made my way longer. I wanted to make sure that he was following me, and it wasn't just a coincidence. He continued to follow me. I picked up my pace, taking snaps just in case something happened. When I reached the end of the street, I was out of breath but safe. There's no one behind me. I entered my home feeling relieved. Suddenly, a white car pulled up in front, stopped, and the driver rolled down his window. It was a man with his pruning shears. Now he knew where I lived. I rushed inside, locked everything, grabbed a kitchen knife, and waited until someone woke up so I could go to bed. There had been no further incidents. No one believed me, so we checked the surveillance cameras at home, and unfortunately, I was right. I remember feeling sick to my stomach while tears ran down my cheeks into my beard. I was sitting in my car on the side of the highway around midnight in between two major cities in Europe. Maybe less than an hour earlier, I had fought bitterly with my girlfriend. We both got mad at each other. She got passive aggressive, and I began to yell at her. I couldn't stand to be with her that evening, so I got my keys, slammed the door, and drove to my apartment in another city. I had to take a break during my drive home. The episode with my girlfriend woke emotions that were too great for me to ignore. So I stood there on the highway with my blinking light and no engine turned on. It was silent around me, except for the occasional truck passing and constant clicking of the blinker light. My body was tight and my mind kept replaying it over and over again. I hate when that happens, so I decided to continue driving. As the heavy flow of tears stopped, I turned the key, but it couldn't turn all the way. I was making a face, surprised that I couldn't turn my key all the way to start my engine. I retried. Nothing. The key was stuck again at the same position. I was stubborn and tried several times again, and failed. Damn it. Thoughts of staying the night on the highway rushed to the forefront of my thoughts. Why? Because I foolishly forgot to grab my cell phone as I was storming out of the apartment. Now I had no means to contact the emergency service of roadside assistance. Now the clicking of the blinking light was a constant blow with a sledgehammer to my head. I shut it off and realized for the first time how dark it was around me. Trucks passed me by within the following minutes, but I did not want to step out of my car and wave one of the drivers over. I didn't trust them. Don't ask me why. I always hate when people freeze in a situation that requires action, so I stepped out of my car. It was now slightly raining. Obviously, I knew where I was, since I regularly drive the highway back and forth, and I knew that 2 kilometers ahead was a highway exit, so I figured that I'd walk on the side of the highway up to the exit. There was a gas station, and I hoped the place would still be open even shortly after midnight. So I closed my car and began walking on the other side of the guardrail, away from the road. So the road was on my left, and trees, illuminated by moonlight, were on my right. I confess, I was scared, very much. I had no particular reason to be afraid, but my mind turned the shadows from the trees into men hiding there, watching me with intense looking eyes and hands ready to grab. After 15 minutes or so, I began to move up a small hill, and the rain turned to snow. It was snowing for a while there, because the earth and trees were covered in white. After yet another while, I saw the exit in the distance. I reached it faster than I thought I would. I miscalculated the distance, but that was all right. I was happy to be so close to light, people, and a phone I could use. Right before the exit, there was a bridge that went over the highway. When I was about to pass under the bridge, I saw a person jogging on it. I stopped and looked up in surprise. I could only make out the silhouette, yet I clearly saw a woman, ponytail, small athletic build, crossing the bridge. What woman would jog around midnight on a closed road to a highway with a wooded area on both sides of the bridge? A few seconds later, she was gone. I looked if I could make her out within the darkness, but I couldn't. Still weirded out, I continued walking and passed under the bridge. A couple meters further down the highway, I took the exit. Now, in order to take this exit by foot, I had to get over the guardrail because there was thick bushes too close to the side that I was on. So basically, I was walking down the road, down the exit to the gas station. On the right of me, behind the bushes, there was a trail. If you decided to walk up the trail, you would arrive back at the bridge I mentioned. So I was walking down the exit road slowly, because it was slippery, but also with a steady pace, because I did not want to get hit by a passing car. And then it happened. Someone jumped on me from behind and pushed me face first into the ground in the middle of the road. I screamed in sudden terror and turned around, ignoring the pain in my chin and right ear. The person was already on their feet again. I screamed again in shock and surprise. It was a woman in her mid-20s wearing the jogging attire. It had been the same person I saw minutes earlier on the bridge. She shrieked, and with wide eyes and saliva dripping out of her mouth, she charged at me again. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my left eye. The woman scratched over my eyes and poked her fingers deep into my left eyeball. I stumbled backwards, and when she came running at me again, I threw her against the guardrail with her back first. The sound of the impact was cringeworthy. I broke down in the middle of the road, clutching my left eye. Moments passed, and I wasn't attacked again. Against all the pain in my eye, I looked up through the tears in both of my eyes and saw the woman heading up the trail towards the bridge. Again, fast. Adrenaline shot through my body. The pain felt numb as I rushed down the exit road, falling on my rear end several times during the process. I was panicking like an animal. I just wanted to escape that place. I reached the gas station, basically jumping against the door and throwing it open. The guy behind the counter was shocked seeing me. I was bleeding a bit and my eye was swollen shut at this point. To make a long story short, the guy at the gas station called the police and an ambulance. The officers searched the area but found nobody. I'm at home now, in the apartment that I inhabit alone, and I'm still terrified. I can't comprehend why this woman attacked me, but I know for certain that she went for a run in the middle of the night just to find victims like me.